Peace, y'all. It's your boy Will Toms, one of the co-founders of Phill, and this is a story that defines me. I'll never forget, I was a few years out of quitting my full-time job, working for Eminem and Ice Cube and Shady Records, and I quit the job to bet on myself and build this business that I really believed in. At this time, we were throwing tons of events around the city, 5 shows a week, sold out shows, having all these parties and all that. But at that time, people didn't know I was still sleeping in the warehouse where Rec was started. So I'm sleeping on this couch, and we in this old warehouse, 9th and Dolphin. Literally, it's raining, pouring after one of these shows that we threw. And I'm sleeping on this couch, and I'm just having this moment of just like, why am I doing this? I'm sleeping on this couch. It's ugly in here. Ain't no heat, ain't no AC. And this rain is literally just like smacking me in my forehead. Just dripping in this super old building in the middle of North Philly. And I'll never forget, as I was asking myself, like, why am I here? What is this all about? God was just like, space. You just need access to the tools that you need to create, the information you need to be able to build the business, and your homies and the people that can affirm you and you can connect with. And it was really clear to me in that moment that that's not just what I needed, but that's the same exact things that other creatives needed as well. Called my man Dave. I said, yo, Dave, you ready to be a millionaire? He said, yup. And I said, space. We're going to build a space for creatives. Fast forward 5 years, we built a multi-million-dollar business called Phill, expanding to other cities as well. We're super proud to have served the creative community of Philadelphia and put millions of dollars into the hands of our members. Tap into the episode. Peace.
Voice of the hopeless, control the game like the coaches. Stay dropping gems, we the winners, coaching, you know this. Never coasting, always elevating, staying focused. When it's all said and done, we the winners, coaching, yeah. We the winners, coaching. It's all said and done.
What's going on, y'all? And welcome to another episode of The Winners Culture. I'm your host, it's just JJ, and to my right.
Hey, y'all, it's Blondie.
And today we have, I always like to introduce the guests with a story. And so my story for this guest is probably about 5 years ago. I was an engineer, and I heard of a creative club, a creative membership group that I had never heard of before. And one of my other engineer friends told me to come out and see what it was all about and see what they had going on there. And I went in, and it was an amazing experience. And it was almost like a college level experience that I had never seen in the city, because it was specific to exactly what I was doing and curtailed to the creative community. And at that time, I heard of Will Toms, one of the leaders of this organization, but I had never met the man. So fast forward a couple years, probably 5 years in the future, I kept hearing, you gotta talk to Will, you gotta meet Will, you have to, like. And so on Creator Day, I was blessed to be able to meet the visionary entrepreneur, Forbes 30 under 30 in 2021 TED Talk speaker and co-owner of Phill, Will Toms. How you doing?
Hey, let's go. I appreciate that intro, bro. That's a good job.
How you feeling, good brother?
Yo, I'm blessed, bro. I feel really good, man.
That's good.
Yeah, grateful to be here, man. Thanks for having me, yo.
Thank you for
coming. We always like to ask our guests, like, how did you feel coming in? Like, how was everything to start the day?
Great. Yeah, man. Today was a good day. My favorite days are like the super eclectic ones where I get to do a bunch of different types of things, because that's kind of how my mind works. So today was good, man. One, it was a beautiful day out. You know what I'm saying? Sun is shining out here in Philly after it's been cold for a minute.
Right.
But today was great because, I got to do some team meetings. Me and Dave do a executive sync up, and then got to do some client stuff, which was great. Then we have a big event on Friday, so I went to the radio station to do some promo for that.
What's the event?
Yo, we have a fire event on Friday. It's called Stronger Together. So this one is similar to Creator Day, where it's an all-day event, but this one's really all about creating programming that inspires people to figure out how to better show up strong for themselves, how to show up stronger for the community, and how to show up strong for our city. So we got amazing panelists. We got like Mark Lamont Hill coming through. He's a co-founder, or actually the founder of Uncle Bobby's. He's going to be in conversation with Sophia Ballin, talking about how we can think about activism with social media these days. We got Jinx from, if you guys remember, like Complex and all the Jinx is going to be there moderating a conversation about the role of art and culture in activism. So that's going to be fire. Got like Gianni Lee coming through for that. Got Cornbread, who is like the founder. He's accredited to be the creator of graffiti. You know what I mean? And talking about how street art informs activism and all that kind of stuff. Then we got pitch competitions. We're going to be giving away some money for people to fund their businesses on the spot. What else we got going on? We got a little mini open mic. So it's just like a whole day of programming, just really loving on people, giving people a place to connect. And we're going to pay some people's rent. 4 people about to get their rent paid on Friday.
I know that's right.
You know what I'm saying?
How do we get on the list? Like,
you know what I'm saying? Joinrent.com.
How do we get on the list?
But yeah, so that's dope. So I went over to the radio station just to promote that and all that good stuff. Then I went back to the crib, got more work done, tapped in with people about some future events coming this summer. So yeah, it's been a busy day, man, but grateful to be here.
Fire, and the community thanks you. You know what I mean? Blondie, how you feeling today?
I'm feeling good. Today was a good day.
Okay.
For me, it was slower than usual. Like I didn't have my normal jobs, but I got some stuff done pretty much in preparation for today. So that's always nice. That's always nice for me anyway.
And
how was your day, bro?
Oh, that's a good. Nobody ever asked.
That's literally not true.
You see what I'm saying?
That's not true. That's literally not true.
It's just being a man in America. It's like, no, what?
It's a thankless job.
No, my day was good. I woke up and the sun was shining, and that always makes me feel like I'm getting hugged from God. And that might sound like dramatic, but that's really how I feel. It's like a warm embrace. And so if y'all don't get outside and just stop and listen and stop and feel and stop and hear and stop and see, I really advocate, especially as Black people who carry a disproportionate amount of stress in our backs specifically. I know that because I was a kinesiologist.
Real.
Now you talking real talk right now, yo.
Did you do your barefoot walk today?
Say it again.
You did your barefoot walk today?
I didn't do the barefoot walk today.
You be getting your grounding in?
I do.
Love that for
It
you, bro.
works. I'm trying to tell you.
It's
People say it's a pseudoscience or whatever, but
No.
for me, when you get up, whatever you was worried about before you took your walk or sat down is not what you worried about no more. You more focused on the bigger picture. You really, like, we had an eclipse the other day. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're a part of something bigger, and that's how it makes you feel. You see what I'm saying? So I really appreciate you for asking me that.
You got it, bro.
But yeah, we're gonna get right into it. So we did a little bit of research, as you can see.
Okay.
A little bit by a lot of videos. You got a lot of videos on.
You know what I'm saying? I'm pretty Googleable. out
Yeah,
here.
and in your TED talk, you talked about coming from humble beginnings.
Yeah.
So could you give us a look into what life looked like for you in your early years or pre-high school?
Yeah. I mean, how deep do we want to go?
As deep as you want.
Yeah, as deep as
we're
you
we're
wanna
willing
go.
to. We're on your
man.
ride.
I'll just put it this way, man. Humble beginnings for me is, my family's from Germantown. You know what I'm saying? Like Wayne Junction. And as I was coming up, like my earliest years, just like really kind of getting into school age period, I just had a bunch of family stuff that was really difficult for me to navigate, just like not really quite understanding like what was happening, in the city, but specifically in my family. So I think some of the experiences that kind of shaped who I later became were, things like, I had an uncle who was murdered at 16, right at the corner of our block, which was a wild experience. Oh, thank you. It's all love. And then, my mom was, I was born in 91. So like I come from like the tail end of like what was happening in the 80s and the early 90s, that crack epidemic and all that. So, my mom was navigating a drug addiction when I was super young and then throughout most of my life. And then my dad was also, kind of doing his thing in the street. And by the time I was like 7, my dad got booked, So like I grew up from this place of adversity kind of early, and also needing to figure out how to understand what was happening around me at a young age. And honestly, those things and me trying to figure that out is what led me to art and creativity. You know what I mean? So like me trying to process like my uncle's situation or trying to process my pop's situation, that's when like poetry became a thing. You know, I was raised by my grandmother, you know, because, you know, not having my parents, she always encouraged me to just be like, yo, like, you might not want to talk about all these things, but like, grab this journal, you know, and still express yourself. And I think at a young age, I really fell in love with how I felt when I was close to my creativity, you know, and I kind of made a commitment pretty early to be like, yo, how do I design a life for myself when I can always be around my creativity, around other creative people? And, you know, fast forward now, 20-something years later, I've had an opportunity to do that. But the young years for me, man, it was like a lot of me and my grandmother, you know, who really was my rock through a lot of that, and still is to this day. And I was always that kid who my grandmother recognized as brilliant from a young age, and her whole thing was like, yo, if I could get this kid off this block, he could do great things, you know? So she really, you know, went the furthest and from a place of sacrifice to enable me to get the opportunities that I did. She always empowered me to understand the importance of education. And like, I grew up in the household where like, I couldn't say I can't, you know what I'm saying? Like, you could not say the word can't in my household, you know, and not from a place of like really it was just coming from a place of like, yo, things can be difficult, but there's nothing that you literally cannot do. So I'm not even gonna allow you to have the limiting belief to say you can't, you know? So I'm really grateful for that, because that literally informed who I became later. Like, my grandmother literally was that grandmother who would tell me like, you could be the president of the United States, and really believed it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and there's something special that happens when someone puts that battery in your back and they're willing to make the sacrifices to enable you to get into the environment that can help out. But anyway, so that's kind of how I started off, and then, you know, grew up in between the inner city, and then eventually moved out to the burbs, because my grandmother was like, you either going to Central or you going to somewhere in the county. You know what I'm saying?
So at what age, like, did you move out of the Germantown?
Yeah, so for me, it was like I moved out when it was time. Like, we went from Germantown, then we went to Northeast, right, because it was a little bit better, right? Okay. And then by the time it was like middle school age, it was like, yo, Baldy ain't it. We gonna go even further out. So by the time I'm like out in the county, like, it's like that middle school, high school age. But still, like, my whole family is, I'm going to church every Sunday, multiple times a week, sometimes in Frankfurt. So I always have lived this experience of being like 1 foot in the city, 1 foot in the county. So like, this idea of navigating both worlds has always been my experience since I was a young buck.
It's like being two different people. It's like, it's a set of rules for one life, and then it's a set of rules for the other life.
Straight up, a set of rules, a language, right? An unspoken language.
Yep.
And I think when you grow up like that, you know, there's this whole idea of like code switching that becomes a thing, right? And then you learn that to navigate, and then you get older and you realize you got to unlearn that. You know what I'm saying?
An identity crisis.
For real.
Or 2 or 3.
So how did you like? And I kind of want to ask this question to all of us, really, because I was talking to Jay earlier, and we were talking about the probability of black kids being in the streets or being like a part of that life if family members are part of that life, or that's what they saw growing up.
For sure.
Because I think, you know, a lot of times our standard of right and wrong is judged by what we see around us. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so how did you not become a statistic or not become a product of that environment? How were you able to stay out of that?
Yeah, that's a good question, man. Look, man, for me, I think if you grow up and the timeline is like, yo, I'm 12, 13, going outside, and your family's in that life, then it's like very normal that you're gonna idolize your parents, your pops, and you're gonna do whatever they're doing. You know, it's a crazy perspective to have, but like, I was fortunate enough that like, by the time I got to that age, I already was super familiar with the outcomes of that lifestyle, right? So I was never enamored by it. You know what I'm saying? Like, again, like, I was a young buck when my uncle was murdered, right? He was 16, I was like 4 or 5, right? So like, remember the funeral. Like I remember taking all the trips. I was still taking the trips upstate to see my pops. So like I was super familiar with like the downside of it. So I was never that kid who was trying to glorify the street life. It was like, yo, this is just where my peoples was coming from with it, but it wasn't ever something I aspired to. So for me, I even had like almost this perspective of like, I know what this side of life looks like. I'm going this way. You know what I'm saying? So my role models were on TV. You know what I mean? I'm like, yo, how do I move around like these guys who look like me? They live in the lifestyle where they're being themselves, they're building businesses. So Russell Simmons, you know what I'm saying? Master P, like those were my mentors, you know? So I never got caught up in all the trappings of like, yo, the hood life is cool. It was like, no, like, and also it's fortunate that I was raised with my grandmother who like was very much so like, look, this is what this is. This is where you have the opportunity to go. You know what I mean? And really put my battery in the back for that.
That's crazy because the way that I escaped the streets at a young age is that my folks didn't let me outside. Like,
Nah, I be like that too. Yeah.
I could not go outside,
Right.
yo.
And you tight as a young boy.
Yeah.
But then when you get older, you like, yo, good looks.
I definitely understand much better now. But back then, I definitely seen that the method was just don't let him outside until he old enough. And my grandparents, I spent a lot of time with my grandparents in the Parkside section of Philadelphia. And they introduced, like when I was young, I remember being young, and my grandmom introducing me to an addict and like making me have a conversation with the addict, like in an attempt to like be like, if you do drugs, like if this is a reality, this is a possible reality, and then
That's real though.
That's real. Like that's real. That's really what happened.
And moms are the funniest people alive. I'm sorry. Like
that was real wisdom. The methods sometimes be questionable, but the wisdom is there.
And the same thing. One of my dad's best friends. He was a drug dealer when he was young, and he had got shot young and lost mobility in his lower limbs. Real. And so he's in a wheelchair. What's up, Uncle Rodney? But he told me straight up, like, you could choose this, and this is what could, this is a possibility. It's not the only possibility, but these is the possibilities. So when I hear you talk about your grandmom, it makes me think of those times and really like the thoughts. And black people love their grandmoms. Like, why?
I mean, it's a whole long story we could talk about of why that's the case. But yeah, man.
Why is that the case to you?
Because I mean, for me, I'll say for me, but what I've seen be true for a lot of our families is like our grandmothers typically are the matriarchs of our families because, like, unfortunately, our family structures aren't what they could be as far as like, yo, I know more of my homies that I grew up without their fathers and had them, right? So typically it's like that matriarch who holds it all together as everyone else is kind of bumping their heads trying to figure it out. You know what I'm saying? So I think like that's just who we are. And also like black people are very like communal tribal people. So like it's not weird for us to grow up in a household with multiple generations. You know what I'm saying? So like usually your grandmother is the wisest one. You know what I'm saying?
So growing up, right? You said that your grandmother was a great inspiration, and your other inspirations really came from TV. Yeah. Could you speak to any of those inspirations and like what it made you want to be or become? And could you see that where you were from? Like, did you have a physical representation?
Yeah, man. So I didn't really have the role models and the mentors in my life up close, right? Like I didn't really grow up seeing, entrepreneurs who are building real businesses. I wasn't exposed to that. So when I first started watching TV and I'm seeing Master P for the first time, like the switch went off. You know what I'm saying? Like the way he was moving No Limit, and like they was all squatted up and they was making money. You know what I'm saying? And especially like that selling the tapes out the trunk, like that energy, that was super attractive to me. And then I remember the first time I ever got a real understanding of like Russell Simmons and how he was moving and Def Jam, like he took it to another level. And I was like, yo, you know what I'm saying? And like I always aspired to go in that path. Because, you know, I always loved culture. I loved music, you know what I mean, and art since a kid. But I fell in love with the business of it. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I'm a nerd, you know, and I'm proud to be a nerd. But when I really started to understand, like I'll tell you like this. So I was what you would call like a latchkey kid. You ever heard of that term?
No, what does that mean?
A latchkey kid is like what they use to describe this experience of like your parents is probably off at work or doing something. So like you coming home after school, letting yourself in the crib, and now you probably spending a little bit of time by yourself. So for me, I'm coming home from school and I'm watching music videos all day, you know what I mean? And I'm watching TV. So I was the nerd who was like watching music videos and TRL and 106 in Park, but I was also conscious enough to understand that like, yo, the things that I'm watching are playing a role in how I see myself.
That's mad, like,
so introspective for like such a young age.
For sure.
Yeah.
So I understood the power of like media and entertainment from young, and I always, you know, hoped to be able to play a role in that when I got older. So then I went off and, you know, eventually studied communications and all that. But like when I got my first camera at like 13 or 14, my life changed because I could tell my own stories, you know what I mean? And I knew the importance and the power of storytelling, and I just chased that.
Did you become like a videographer? Like, how did you use the camera? Okay.
Yeah, man. So look, my first entrance into creativity was through poetry and all that. You know, everyone, if you're from Philly, you probably got at least a couple 16s, you know, that you didn't really.
You have to.
Right? But I grew out of that quickly. I was like, you know what? That is not the path for me. And then after that, yeah, I fell in love with videos and visual storytelling. So when I first got that camera, it was just like, yo, this is it. So I ran around with shooting music videos for the homies, short films, you know. Like I was that nerd where like once I went into high school, I was running the TV studio, you know, I was producing the announcements, you know, in school and all that kind of stuff. And then as soon as I got home, I was like, yo, who dope? Cool, let me shoot a video for you, you know? And I was on Final Cut, like early in the game. Like that's who I was. And then I followed that track all the way through college, you know, still producing and directing TV shows and doing all this stuff. And then even my first internship, like NBC, making videos, you know what I mean? Producing TV shows. And honestly, I thought that was going to be my path. Like I would stay close to production or go into like broadcasting. But then later I had some experiences that was just like, yo, nah, this ain't it. Like you really want to be more of a business builder.
Okay. So now take us into, so that was the experience pre-high school. And then you talked a little bit about how high school was a little bit of a culture shock.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Can you take us through that, like what the culture shock was and how you dealt with it?
Yeah, it was a culture shock because, like, you know, early on, being in the city and, like, especially, like, the way I was raised in a church and all that, I was just around black people. Mm-hmm. So, like, when I first got to a school where most people didn't look like me, it was like, wait, first off, they doing things and saying things that I just have no context
different,
for,
right? They do. It's a little different.
But also, I've always been like a very like intuitive and somewhat conscious kid. So like, I'm like, yo, why they looking at me left when I say stuff? You know what I mean? Like, for example, I had an experience where like there was like a spelling bee, and like I had a teacher just be so shocked that I won the spelling bee.
That you can spell?
Yeah, like, you know what I'm saying?
Like, stop playing with me.
Because just as much as I had the culture shock, like, I also knew that I didn't fit the mold of what they expected me to be as this young black kid from the city. So, like, they always was just like, oh, you're not what I thought, you know? So I understood how to, like, navigate that quick. But that was a big culture shock just to understand, man, just, like, the real stark differences, you know what I'm saying, and norms. Again, only from what, a 20-minute drive away, 25-minute drive. It's like, it's a whole different world.
Was it hard navigating that? Because like for black people, at face value, we know how we have to be in certain settings. But when you came home, like, how did you process all of that? Like, and it seems like your grandma helped you, like the confidence she instilled in you helped you navigate that. But did it ever make you feel a way that you had to, you know, like constantly defend, you know, why you are the way you are?
Yeah, I think subconsciously and as a kid, like, for sure, right? Because you're just like, yo, why do I have to shift and this and that? But, like, as a kid, it was a game to me, you know what I mean? For real, because it was just like, yo, like, you have all these preconceived notions. So, like, and even my grandmother, like, she taught me young, like, yo, being who we are, you got to work twice as hard to get half as much. So it was almost just like, all right, I'm built for it. So like, y'all don't think I'm gonna do this? Cool. I'm straight A's, right? Like, oh, I don't do this. Like, all right, cool. I'm gonna show y'all like this and that. So I didn't really feel that weird about it because I could carry it, you know? But, you know, of course, as you grow older, then you really just start to get more the frustration of like, what is this? You know what I'm saying?
It's crazy because like in this room right now, this is a whole room full of black people that are doing things for black people in the black community, but we all graduated from PWIs. Like, and so we all have had to navigate white spaces even before college. But like just like seeing all of us now and seeing like the fact that I know that all of us got a whole nother side that we could turn on. You feel like you feel what I'm saying? A whole nother side that we could turn on. But it's also like conversations about what do you think are, and I want to ask both of y'all, like what do you think are the pros and cons of being black but being raised up in white spaces?
What do you think?
Well, the pro is that you learn to code switch. Like
what was your spaces first? Can you talk about it?
I've had a lot of white spaces. Just like a quick recap. Growing up, I would spend about half of my year in the city and the other half in Pittsburgh with my aunt. Mm-hmm. And Pittsburgh is a super black city, but my aunt, her community was not very urban. It was a white space filled with black people, to put it in a sense. So there was that. I worked at summer camps in the woods doing super Caucasian activities. Hold on,
give us a quick example.
I mean, like
you can light a fire, yo.
I can build a fire. I can build a fire. Whitewater rafting, rock climbing, hiking.
Whitewater rafting is definitely one of them ones.
Is one of the ones for sure.
Certainly.
For sure. I like, chopping wood, walking a couple feet to the bathroom in an outhouse, like just very different for me. So I would have that experience, and even down to how I would wear my hair. Like it would be a wash and go or an afro or like, just super natural. And I would come home to the city and perms, wraps, everything just complete opposite. So in a sense, growing up, being in those white spaces, I kind of felt free to just be black.
Oh, that's interesting.
And then when I came home, I had to be like Philly black,
wow.
It was different. But it did suck being underestimated constantly and not fitting the mold of like a typical black girl. I guess in both spaces, both at home and in my other home in Pittsburgh.
And that's really interesting because I think the people like us who probably have to navigate both, there's this experience of like you're too much of this for this group, but you're also like too much of this for the other group. Yeah. So then you have to really figure out what your identity is and like how you can finally bring your whole self to one of the spaces.
It's really hard, I will say, because you get the questions: are you from the suburbs? People ask me, am I from Jersey? Am I from this? And it's like,
did you change how you talk? Did you?
I've always talked like this my whole life.
Okay.
My family's from the projects.
Word.
So
wow. And
that's always a shock for people.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and I think I'll double down. The pro is, I'm not gonna say code switching is a pro, but it does challenge you. Like growing up in a PWI challenges you to understand all types of people, right? And I think for me, that's been a weapon because, like, for example, when I went to college, I went to IUP, you know what I mean? And, like, I've navigated all of the PWI fraternities and sororities and all that stuff, too. And, like, those experiences taught me how to navigate corporate America.
You was in a fraternity?
Yeah.
What fraternity?
Nah, we're not doing that.
You did?
Nah, I wasn't in a Divine Nine. So,
okay.
I had a great experience, but it's just, like, something that made sense for me at that time that, like, now, it's just keep it a buck. But that experience taught me how to navigate corporate America. You know what I mean? Like understanding white men and like this energy that they have, right? This, how would I articulate it? This like assumed, audacity. I'll just use that word.
Like entitlement. Like they entitled to.
There's a crazy level of entitlement. But then I also learned and was just like, yo, well, why do they have this unearned confidence that I don't have?
That's real rap.
You know what I'm saying?
You have no reason to feel like this. Yo.
You know what I mean? And then once you see it up close and you understand it, you're like, oh, all right, cool. So that's just how we moving. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then it just helps you understand. And then also understanding, like, seeing nepotism up front for the first time, right? And like
talentless people,
right?
You know, and I'm not gonna say that none of them have talent, but like you start to realize that, like, yo, the world don't work in a meritocracy.
Right.
So relationships are really the way to navigate this world. Of course, for people like us, we have to have the relationships, but then get in the room and then be able to have the actual merit to stay there. But like, you be playing yourself not to actually leverage that strategy. So like, for example, the other day, my homie and I were talking about like Bronny James and LeBron, right? And they're like, yo, we wouldn't even know Bull's name stats-wise if he wasn't LeBron's son. But it's like, so what? Like, that's how the world works. Like, you think that Sam Walton was like, oh, let me pass my business down to the very best person to run my business? No, he said, I'm going to give it to my son.
Right.
And that's what you get to do when you win out here.
Right.
So we should be not upset by that, but we should say, how do I flex so that way my children can take advantage of nepotism as well? Yeah. You know, but anyway, I saw that up front, and that was really helpful because now I know I can walk in any room, you know what I'm saying, and get what I need out of it. But then the downside is just like, there's something powerful, like you mentioned, about being underestimated, that if you're not ready for it, it's hard to overcome. Because I believe this, I think like people weirdly, consistently rise to their level of expectation for themselves. Right. So like for me, I was fortunate that my grandmother always had an expectation for me up here. And sometimes that was difficult because I'm like, yo, I got a B. Granny, like, this is good. She's like, but you are someone who gets A's. Right. So there's that. But then on the flip side, like if your teachers is expecting you to be a C student, it's going to be hard for you to have the motivation to become an A student. So it works both ways. So that's just kind of how I see it. Some of the pluses and minuses.
I know you had everybody in here ready to clap. You feel what I'm saying? Because we all had them experiences crazy. Whatchamacallit? Najee walked in. G, he's the owner of 524.
Peace, bro.
He a graduate of the University of Maine. One of the pastiest.
Wow.
You seen this?
Yeah.
one of the pastiest.
Ford shorts and boat shoes. You know, yeah. I believe it. In Maine, everyone's dad is a lawyer, and they'll sue you. Yeah.
So we had many conversations just about like him telling me like, bro, this is how they're living. You feel what I'm saying? This is what we're doing, and this is what they're doing. And we're trying hard and doing this and doing that, and this is what they're doing. Like,
and that's so helpful because like it allows you to have a perspective other than what we're raised in to help you not normalize some of the BS that we be normalizing. Right. Just if we're gonna be honest, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, and there's a lot of it. So, but yeah, I think that's really helpful.
Yeah. And then, one more shout out. Amani, she went to Yale, so another one of the most. So everybody, when you were saying everything that you were saying, the rest of us went to Bloomsburg. The rest of us went to
I went to IUP, that's lit.
Yeah. So, but we all resonate deeply with everything you was just saying. Yeah. So while when you are in that situation, right, and you're realizing that relationships are the key to like everything, right? What is your mentality around relationship building? Are you viewing it as a skill at this time? Are you developing it as a skill? And what steps are you taking to cultivate and make those relationships?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I when I learned that relationships was the way, like, I just leaned in. Like, so I've always, fortunately, I'm also just like a charismatic guy. So like I've always been a social butterfly. I've always been able to navigate whatever room, and that's been super helpful. But I think more than anything, like if I could just give anyone like a tip on like what real relationship building and networking is about, it's just about value and really understanding value exchange. So for example, I get to work closely with a lot of creatives, right? And when they think about networking, they think it's about going in a room and then figuring out like who can be valuable to them. Mm-hmm. But that's not what networking or relationship building is about. It's about knowing what value you have and then going into rooms specifically to figure out who you can add value to. You know what I'm saying? And when you flip that switch, it's like it's hard for you not to build relationships because everyone wants to be around the person who's going to add value. Yeah. So, I would just make a habit of that and like figure out what that looks like. It looks different in every room, but like even in college, it was like, all right, cool. So like you really good at this. This is what you want to do. All right, bet. How can my positioning help that? You know what I'm saying? Whether it was, yo, I had homies coming from other schools because they wanted to throw parties at IUP. Cool, I got access to this big crib. Yo, you want to throw a party here? Oh, you want to perform? I'll throw the show for you. You can come through and perform to this crowd. But then that looked even different where it's just like, oh, you're actually socially awkward and you don't know how to talk to these ladies over here. I got you. Let me introduce you, right?
Value, right.
And they never forget that, right? And I'll tell you just a quick story. When we were raising capital for Rec, the first check we ever got in was a check from the father of a guy who was in a fraternity at IUP. It was not the fraternity I was in, but he just knew me from the parties.
Wow.
And one of those situations where I was like, yo, oh, you want to meet this shorty? Oh, yeah, that's my homie. Yo, blah, blah, blah. But, like, he just never forget how I made him feel in that moment. You know what I mean? So, like, when he found out, we got connected. He was like, yo, you're raising. This is dope. Introduced me to his pop. A week later, his pop was down to write the check. Mm-hmm. But it's just those little things of just like, yo, like, people will forget what you say. People will forget all the little things you do. But people will never forget how you made them feel. And they'll never forget that it was like, yo, this person just showed up ready to add value. And that's really how you build relationships.
That's crazy because when I went to college, I went to college on a football scholarship. I was an athlete, and my dad told me, actually technically it was an academic scholarship, but they only gave it to football players.
Hey, yo, that's hilarious, actually.
I don't know if I can say that on camera. Bloom cheating, yo.
Listen, they trying to get the leg up, yo.
But,
yo, that's hilarious.
Ridiculous.
When I went, my dad is a graduate of Westchester University, and when I was, getting ready to go to college, I always remember him telling me that college is about relationships.
100%.
Like when you go here, passing is cool. You got to pass to stay there. Yep. You know what I'm saying? Class is cool. You got to go to class to stay there. Like everything else is cool, but what you there primarily to do is make friends.
100%.
And that really stuck with me from that moment. That's what everybody here is from Bloom. You know what I'm saying? Because I knew at the moment that I had seen Blondie the first time, I said she gonna be useful forever.
Yep.
You see?
That's real though, right? Wait, hold on. Why you look like that? You don't think that was a high compliment? You ain't take it that way?
He's such an antagonist. That's not how it happened. That's not how it happened. Enough. That's not what happened.
Clear it up. What happened?
We met working at the writing center together. We both were tutors, and he's is a year above me, so he started before me. And I was and still am a little more reserved in public spaces and to myself. And we were in the library room, and everybody was like congregating, talking, and I was way over there in the corner because I was the only black person in the room until he got there. Word. So. What we got to talk about? I didn't know nobody. No shade to nobody else there. But he came over and started talking to me and was like, why are you so quiet? Why are you sitting over here by yourself? And in my head, I'm thinking, it's like, nothing gave off the impression that I wanted somebody to talk to me.
Hey, yo.
Nothing gave off that impression. And he literally never left me alone from that day.
That's what's up.
I feel like sometimes I feel like community is core, like essential to like our existence, and I feel like it's even more essential. I don't know if this is true or not, but it just feel more essential to our existence as black people, just because of how like a tribe, like,
because of who we are and where we come from,
because of who we are. And so this leads to the next question too. But when I see a person that's just like not, you feel what I'm saying? Like, because the writing center itself was a community, and then black people was a community, and I was well in both communities. And I knew that she was also in both communities, but wasn't participating. Yeah. I'm like, that can't be safe. That can't be healthy. Like, you got to have some friends.
I had people.
You feel what I'm saying?
He just wasn't my friend. That's what I'm saying. Like, I had people.
Yo,
like,
don't act like.
Like, come on.
You see what I'm saying? I don't never see you outside. You never come into the writing center socials.
Not what I'm here for.
You see what I'm saying? What's going on? So that's how that happened. But how did or how have you made or found spaces of community? Because you said you feel like, or have felt like, you were other sometimes. Yeah. How have you made or found spaces of community that fit you?
Yeah, I think because I've felt that so much, being too much of this for these people, too much of that, it's always just been natural for me to create community. You know what I'm saying? So like, if I was, running around in college and I was like, yo, you making cool videos, but you also dope, like you just a cool person, bet we gonna be doing stuff. So let's go put together some events and go find other people like us, and just create that space. So that's just always been a part of me, man. It hasn't even been something that I've like overthought. It just was what it was. But I also, because I was a networker, I learned really early that sometimes the most valuable thing you can do for someone else is connect them to someone else. So like I was the person who, like, if you knew me through like the TV studio in my major, you knew I was very, very active there. If you knew me through the fraternity social life, I was very, very active there. If you knew me through academics, I was very active there, and then some other extracurricular activities. But I was really gifted at being like, oh, you don't know Bull? Right. Yo, let me introduce you. And that also went through when I got out of college, when I was building Broad Street Music Group with Dave. It was very clear that like there were certain cliques and silos of the creative industry of Philly, right? So there were certain rappers who would spend time at certain venues, and they had access to the venues, but like they didn't have no access to no brands or no capital or nothing like that. But then I'm like, yo, there's these bands over here that got all the access to the capital and the good equipment, but like they not really tapped into what's happening over here. And we just started cross-pollinating that, and then we would create even more valuable experiences for everybody, just because we were, I don't know, courageous enough or thinking outside the box enough to be like, we could probably do a show with a classical cellist and also a hip-hop artist, and we could make it work.
That's genius though. That's really genius. How do you, like, for if a person was struggling to network or struggling to build relationships or find their confidence in that, what advice would you give to a person like that?
Yeah, I think the first part is you just got to know who you are and what value you have. I think people struggle to network because they're just not clear on like, what do I have to offer? And that can look so many different ways. But even in my book, man, like the very first chapter, my book is really like a blueprint and a strategy guide for how to build a business around your passion.
What's the name of the book?
The book is called Uncommon Sense, Your Strategy Guide to Creative Freedom. So literally for anyone who's like, yo, I'm passionate about a thing, but I'm trying to build a profitable business around it, what do I do? And it's a 10-step guide. And the very first chapter is who are you? And it's about how do you get clear on like who you are and how you're trying to show up and what your intention is. And then the second one is what's your story? So it gives you a tool to help you actually articulate like, this is what I'm here to do, and this is who I'm for, and this is how I want to make people feel, right? And this is when it's important for people to feel that way. And I think that's what gets in most people's way. Like they don't actually understand what they have to offer to a space, or if they do, they just don't know how to articulate it. So I think that's what it's about at first.
I think it was when we were at the creative class dinner, and you had opened the table up for suggestions for rec. And everybody was giving their suggestions, and I didn't, just because I was at the end of the table. Really, that was really, I guess that's an excuse.
Yeah, you got in your own way on that.
Yeah, I got in my own way. But then I had came up to talk to you, and at the end of the conversation, you said, "What can I do to you? How can I add value to you?" Yeah. And that was a question that I was not expecting. Like I did not expect that question to come, even though you had just said, literally, that's what you do. You feel what I'm saying? But it was in practice immediately. Yeah. And then I started, like, in that moment was something I learned in that time, just how easy or how accessible it could be if you stop overthinking it. Like literally.
And you mind if I share what I said at the dinner?
Yeah.
Because I think it's going to be helpful for a lot of people. Like if you're thinking about how you can be a better networker and how you can build your relationships and build community, I think especially as people of color, too often we walk in rooms and in our mind we don't have, one, a clear understanding of what we can give and what we can contribute. And then even worse, we don't know what our ask is. So like we go in a room and like we know we're around hitters, but if you don't know already in your mind like what you need, then when someone does what I did and they're like, yo, how can I help you right now? You'd be like, and it's like, what? And no offense, like no shade, but like what that communicates is like, you're not ready for the help that someone could give you. So like, that's just something so important. Always have a give, always have an ask, because that's how we transact value. That's how we build relationships. So like, if I ran into, I don't know, who's one of your favorite entrepreneurs?
one of my favorite entrepreneurs right now.
Yeah.
You know the person that came to mind is Ben Thomas.
Well, yo, Ben is lit. Shout out Ben.
Smart
But and you know him. But like, if you didn't know him or whoever it was, if you walk in and God puts that person in your path, you can't even take all the value out of the moment because you don't have a clear, yo, this is who I am. This is what I do. This is how I can be valuable to you. And also, I know how well you're positioned. This will be really helpful for me if you'd be open to this. Mm-hmm. But if we don't have that, then, you know, we just be wasting moments.
And after, like, at that moment is when I left, like, actually 30 seconds after that, I said to myself, I will never not, I will never not have an ask again.
Fire.
Every time I go into a room from now on, if a question like that were to come up, I would have an answer at the top of my mind.
And that's what it's all about, bro. And I pray that when that moment gets in your path, because it will happen, something great is gonna come just because you were prepared. Yeah. You know?
I appreciate that. So you told us how you became an expert per se at relationships in college, right? You became skilled in relationships. You learned the value of relationships in college. How did you leverage that when you left college? Can you tell us a little bit about Broad Street Music Group and how you brought that to life and what that was about?
Yeah. I think if I had to sum it up, like what I really learned in college was that everything that we're trying to get in life is 9 times out of 10 on the other side of another person, right? So it was like, okay, cool. If I need access to a thing, how do I know the person who can say yes or not? And what that looked like over the next few years when I got back to Philly, linked up with my boy Dave, you know, and I didn't say this before, but Dave and I, my business partner, co-founder of Rec, we've been homies since high school.
Fire.
You know what I'm saying? So like even that relationship, like we did a class project together in chemistry class and was like, yo, we are opposites, but our values are similar. Your skill set is way different than mine. Mine is way different than yours. Your culture is way different than mine. Mine's way different than yours. But the fact that we get along so well could be a real weapon, you know, and we could really be bridge builders. And then that rang true, you know. But anyway, so when I got home from college, man, it was just, yo, let's just get outside and let's meet as many people as we can, you know. And again, because of Dave and I's differences, there were spaces that like I could move around in that Dave was not trying to move around in, right? But also there were rooms that Dave could get in that I wasn't positioned to get in, you know what I mean? They would look at me crazy. So we leveraged that and we really ran it up. And that went from us just throwing, you know, parties on Temple's campus. And then eventually it was like, yo, let's go to real venues. So we would just go to random venues, some of which that don't even exist anymore, like the Arts Garage, right? Which was a real venue.
Arts Garage not there no more?
Nah, Ola and them, I think they been shut that down. But like the Arts Garage and like Dobbs before it shut down and then reopened, but like Dobbs on South Street, we would go to these venues and literally it was just about adding value. Yo, I'm here, it's Tuesday night, it's dead in here. Yo, give us a shot. We could put 100 people in here in a couple weeks. Just, yo, how do we add value? And then they would say yes. We would get it lit. We would do what we said. We would have 100 people in there. And then that really built our reputation. You know what I mean? And eventually the challenge was after you get a spot lit like that on the off night, then they realize we don't really want black people in here. So then they start being like, oh, sorry, we double booked, you know? And then it was just tough. But anyway, we were throwing 5 shows a week at one point in that era, just grinding. And at that time, me and Dave both had full-time jobs. So like we working 8 to 5, you know, and then from 6 to 2 a.m. throwing shows, go to sleep, do it all again. But by the time we were done, we had relationships with just about every venue owner in the city, right, who actually respected us, would answer our emails. We had an email list of probably about 8,000 emails of artists and creatives, you know what I mean? And, like, those were our assets, our reputation and our email list, you know? And over time, we recognized that, like, the idea of just, like, putting people on stages wasn't enough. And then later, you know, God gave me the vision for Rec, and then we went in that direction. But all we had, because, you know, we were not successful with our production company, right? Like, and what I mean by that is, like, financially. Like, what we were successful in is it built our network and it built our reputation. but we didn't know anything about really making money and building a profitable business. So like everything we made on one event went right into the next event, you know what I mean? And over and over and over again. But it really set up the foundation for Rec because it allowed us to intimately understand the problems that the people we wanted to serve had, right? And that's what spurred the next thing. So
did you ever get into like corporate marketing or anything like that?
Corporate with an asterisk, but yeah, man, before Rec, like I worked a full-time job. I was in the agency world. So when we were doing Broad Street Music Group, again, we're selling out these shows, right, night after night. And I was actually recruited to work at an agency called Fame House. So Fame House was founded by 2 Drexel students, you know, and they did digital strategy and e-commerce specifically for entertainment brands, right? So at that time, they had like DJ Shadow as a client, Pretty Lights as a client, Amanda Palmer, and like some of these brands people might not know, but these are huge businesses on the internet, you know? And then they also had Eminem, and they had just got Ice Cube and Shady Records. And then a couple months into me being there, they had MMG, which is Miami Music Group that owned Live Miami, Story Miami, the biggest clubs in Miami. So they recruited me. I walked into that client roster, and I got on those accounts. So I walked into a roster of Eminem, Shady Records, Ice Cube, Live Miami, and an electronic artist act called Michael Brune. And they were like, look, clearly you know something about marketing. You're filling these rooms, but let us teach you like the real blocking and tackling of what digital strategy is. And, you know, I give them a lot of credit, man. They took a chance on me. They, you know, really trained me up. And I had my first big successful campaign for Ice Cube. And it gave me all the confidence I needed to really like go into what Rec is. And, you know, so just to paint the picture, do you remember when the movie Straight Outta Compton came out?
Yes.
You seen it? Yeah. Do you remember, like, before that movie came out, people were posting Straight Outta Uptown, Straight Outta Jersey?
Yeah.
So that was the marketing campaign that I worked on with our team there. And, like...
That's so heavy.
You feel me?
You said it's so calm. Like, that, people still wear those shirts today.
Facts. And, like, I wish if I just got a penny for every design I've ever seen.
A little residual.
Around, right? But I didn't get anything from that. You know what I mean? The reward of good work in the agency world is more work, right? so I'll never forget, I had that win, and like, you know, and real quick, like what the real win was they knew if you cared about hip hop and what NWA meant to culture, you were gonna go see that film, right? If you knew just what like South Central LA and that culture meant to hip hop, you were gonna go see the film. But the whole campaign, the problem really was, how do we get people from Middle America to care about this movie about a bunch of black dudes, you know, from Compton? And that's when Straight Outta Blank as a campaign was birthed, because we were like, yo, well, why don't we get people excited about things they're already excited about? Mm-hmm. Everyone's excited about where they're from. You know what I'm saying? So like that was like the ideology of that campaign. And then I believe that digital strategy helped that movie go on to break box office records
for a
biopic, you know? And that's when I was introduced and like really like cemented in like this whole idea of direct to consumer. And that's when, you know, being a classically trained marketer helped usher in the next chapter of my life, because I had this like real, almost like existential crisis of like, yo, I just helped them break these box office records. Do I want to? And I was doing mad cool projects for Shady too, like that we can get into if you want later. But
go ahead.
What?
Do your thing.
Yeah, like like some of the projects we got to work on, bro. Like they were bringing us real projects of just like, look, Eminem is one of our biggest clients. We need to do right by this client account. How do we make $400,000 over the next 3 months for Eminem? And oh yeah, we can't use any of Marshall Mathers' time. Right? So it ain't, oh, let's make a video, get Eminem to say this, and then people are going to go do that. No. So all we had was to work with the brand, what we knew of Eminem, what we knew the fans, you know, loved about him, you know, and we had to be true to that, but then create revenue generating opportunities. So for example, there was a time when his studio back in Detroit that he made a lot of the best records at, that joint flooded. And we're like, yo, this is crazy, but like, what can we do? You know, to salvage the situation. Came up with a campaign with the team. This wasn't my campaign, but I worked on it with the team. we sold bricks to the studio, right? That Eminem made all these records in, and ended up selling hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of bricks, right?
How do you do? Where do you get the bricks from? Like
from the building. Like they literally was like, hey, can we have a construction team? They're going to demolish it anyway because it's destroyed. Let's go in and let's get like 2,000 of the bricks of the building. And then we created a story about it all and then was able to sell those. Went crazy, right? Or even just like the G-Shock campaign back when G-Shocks was popping. Yo, let's do the custom branded Eminem G-Shock, create the whole story of it, you know, and all of a sudden you're selling hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of watches, but it didn't take anything from Eminem. It's just the power of the brand and then understanding who his top fans are that are already moving and then creating the right message at the right time to the right person. That's what real marketing is. Yeah. But anyway, as we started to dial in and do all these things, it was like, yo, do I want to make millionaires more millions? Or can I teach these exact same strategies to my homies that could go from 0 to 60,000 a year doing what they love? And I was like, all right, well, I'm on that side. You know what I'm saying? So at that point, I was like, yo, direct to consumer is the future. And again, this is back in 2013, 2014, 2015, right? So this is before Chance the Rapper made being independent cool, you know? And I was like, yo, I see where the future is going. I'm willing to bet the house on it. But if creatives that look like us are going to be able to take advantage of direct to consumer, we would need a certain amenity set to be able to compete at the highest level. So it's like, I can't tell people, yo, go direct to consumer. And this is before the iPhone cameras look like they did now. Yeah. I'm like, yo, we're going to need access to real cameras. We're going to need access to real lights. And more importantly, we need access to these real strategies. Yeah. And that's when like the first event you came to a rec, it was an educational event because I felt like there was a gap in the market for people who understood the business and really could learn how to be an entrepreneur through this thing that we love called creativity. And that's what rec became, you know? So rec right now, it's all about access to high quality resources to create content, right? We got the 14 private studios, but then also educational programming, teaching you what marketing looks like, teaching you what branding looks like, teaching you all these things. And then third, a group of like-minded people for us to be able to collaborate and connect and to grow. And then the final part is, and once you're growing, real opportunities to get paid to do what you do. And that's why we built our agency. So now we work with some of the biggest brands in the world specifically to get our creatives paid.
Talk heavy. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, man.
No, that's really fire. So I think one thing that you just said that was key was when you was talking about doing the campaign for Eminem, and how you leveraged the strength of the brand.
Yep.
So because he wasn't there, he couldn't show up. So you had to leverage the strength of the brand in order to sell what you were selling. Can you talk a little bit about what makes a strong brand or a brand that could, be leveraged in that manner?
Yeah, clarity. Clarity wins, and I think people underestimate the power of consistency and clarity. And let me break it down. So like, consistency is the most important word in marketing. And when I say consistency, I don't mean like, are you just posting every day on Instagram? That's a part of it too, right? Do people get to the point where they can get familiar with you and used to seeing you? But when I say consistency is this, and for anyone who's studied marketing or even communications, like, and you said this earlier, maybe off camera, I don't know, 70% of communication is nonverbal, right? So what that means is people hear one thing when they hear the words I'm saying, but also like the way I'm dressed right now communicates something about who I am, right? I've built a multi-million-dollar business, Forbes 30 under 30, but I'm not in here wearing a suit. So that communicates to the people who are watching this something about who I am. Also, the people I'm associated with, the people you see me with on the internet or you see me with outside, says something about who I am, right? So what that means is everything speaks. So if everything speaks, one, what are you saying, right? And how do you get intentional about that? And it's clear to people. But then the second thing is, do all of those different methods and vehicles of communication say the same thing? So for example, just to make it plain, like I've met hip hop artists who come to me and they be like, yeah, bro, I'm building this brand. I just want you to know I'm like real down to earth, you know what I'm saying? Like for the people. But then they're also wearing the biggest chain I've ever seen in my life.
The people don't have that.
I'm like, the people don't have that. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so you're giving two very opposite messages at one point. And the consumers don't have the language to say this, but like, they're going to say, I don't get it because I don't know who you are trying to be to me. You know what I'm saying? So like that word consistency is like, you have to know what your message is, and then you have to align it in every way that you communicate. And I think people just get in their own way because they think in their mind, oh, I don't want to be put in a box. So I want to do this and I want to do that. And like, I want people to know I tie my shoes really good. But it's like, but bro, what do you want to be known for? Because people don't have the attention spans to think about your 25 different gifts. You got to start off with one thing that people know you for, because that consistency is how people build trust. And if you don't hear nothing else I say, like throughout the rest of the podcast, business is a game of trust. If people don't trust you, they don't want to give you their money. So it's about that consistency, which creates this idea of like predictability, right? Like people know what they're going to get when they bring Will in for a podcast or when they hire Will to do some sort of marketing campaign. And that predictability is how we trust people. Mm-hmm. And once you have that trust, and especially if you master something, that trust and that expertise can transfer to other skill sets. So like Kanye started off as the best producer in the game. Yeah. He could rap too, but no one trusted him to rap on the records. So he was like, yo, just produce. And then once he had hits with Jay-Z and hits with all these other artists, then he leveraged that trust to be like, all right, but let me spit, y'all. Then they did. And now there's Gen Z kids who don't even know Kanye as a producer. They know him as the fashion guy. Right. But some people, because we have all these gifts, we come out into the game trying to do everything at once when people don't trust you at any of them. And that really slows down the traction. So I'll just land it by saying this. The way to really brand yourself and to really get yourself in a good spot marketing-wise in the beginning is be known for something. And then really be the first person that comes to mind for that thing. Mm-hmm. That's how you win. And then you leverage that to get other things out there in the market.
Fire. So like in that same lane, right? So having this knowledge of marketing, having this knowledge of branding when you're going into starting Rec, right? Can you take us into like what the early days were like? Because I'm sure you had a better vision than most because you knew what it took and you knew what things need to look like. But in terms of resources that you had to use, or in terms of, connections or networking and things like that, to bring a vision to life that I'm sure that you had in a grander version than what was possible at that very time. Can you tell us about how you did that and what that looked like?
Sure. Yeah. I'd say this. The best thing I feel like we ever did in the very beginning of Rec is we got extremely clear on who we wanted to serve. Right? Sometimes people go out and they say, I have this great idea, so I'm going to build this thing. And then once it's built, they're like, now I got to figure out who I'm going to sell it to. I didn't do that. Like in the very beginning, Dave and I were both clear. We want to serve creatives. So once we understood who we wanted to serve, then it was like, let's go talk to them. And we went and we just talked to, remember I mentioned that email list of all those artists? Yeah. We literally decided to throw focus groups. And we would email everyone and be like, hey, we have this idea, but we want to get your feedback. So we would do focus groups every month for a long time asking, yo, we have this idea about this great creative space. What would y'all want to see in the space? What would be in your dream creative space? What kind of tools would be there? What would it look like? What would it smell like? How big is it? What kind of programs and events would happen? And we got all that feedback and all that data. And we were like, oh, okay, cool. These are the core things that people need. And then we built it. So it wasn't a question of like, is this gonna hit? Are people gonna want it? It was like, yo, we built the thing that our community told us that they needed. And I think that's the best way to be of service. And I think the bar under that I didn't say is like, if you want to be successful in life, you first have to show up with a heart of service, right? Because like, that's what entrepreneurship is. Like, we're just glorified problem solvers. So get clear enough on whose problems you want to solve. And then everything else is just pivot, iterate until you actually find that product market fit.
So the winners culture, so like everybody here, right, is entrepreneurs, like in their own way, right? Blondie, she has her own hair shop. She does hair. That's what she does. Oh, yeah. Jay is production. Bounce is a DJ. Amani, she's a writer. She does that. Everybody has an entrepreneurial venture. What were some of your like internal and like external struggles as you were You see what? Because this is what we talk about, like amongst each other, and that's really what the winners culture is for. Like the conversations about the journey to success, not like And what were some of your internal, external struggles as you were like really getting into entrepreneurship in a way that said that you were committed to it? Like, I have this dream and I'm not coming off it. Like,
bruh, there's so many. See, this is where the podcast gets good. It's been good this far, but this is where it really gets good, man. Because there were so many. We could talk about this forever. Like, the external struggles was, man, like, I had a big vision and no money. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like,
talk about that.
Straight up, like.
Only.
And I'll tell you this, like, when again we worked for years where I was working a full-time job and so was Dave, and then we was throwing all the shows and all that, right? And the challenge with that is like, time is spread too thin to actually do something really impactful. Yeah. Like, if you just want to be real, because you're competing against people who are putting their all and their best hours in. But if you work a full-time job, you're giving your best hours to the job.
For sure.
Right?
Right.
And someone said this, and I'll never forget it. They were like, the two most addictive things on the planet are heroin and a monthly salary.
He talking.
You feel me? So, like, that internal battle of, like, I believe in this thing that I know that God has told me that I should go build, but I also know how good it feels to have this predictable income right here and this lifestyle that I got, right? There's a real battle of, like, betting on yourself and jumping out the window. So there was a part of that. And then once you jump out the window, you get it going. Another battle that we had specifically was, like, we were creating a model that didn't exist before. So, like, I'm telling artists, you're going to pay a subscription. You're going to have access to this whole space, and we all going to share it. And artists was like, I'm going to record at the same place that they record at? I don't want to do that. I want my own spot. I want it to be me, just me out here by myself, and I don't want other people to know what mic I use.
Artists is divas, y'all.
Right? Like, there was a lot of that. You know what I mean? So, like, this whole idea of resource sharing, it wasn't in the creative space at that time. So this idea of, like, this membership club, like, and even, like, co-working, the people that we were serving, they didn't even know about a WeWork, right, at that time. So, like, these were new concepts that we had to introduce before I can get someone to be like, oh, this makes sense. Sign me up. Right. So there was a lot of education that we had to put out there. And then even, bless them. But there were some people even in the beginning who were like, there's no way this is going to work. It's already been tried. Y'all wasting your time. Which is just like.
Tried it, though.
They say people tried it, but they didn't try it because they didn't even understand what we were actually trying to do.
Right.
You know what I mean? But that's, like, the mindset that some people have. And I think the gift that me and Dave had was, like, we were naive enough to know what couldn't work. You know what I mean? Or to not know what couldn't work. So we were like, we believe in this thing. We're going to just do it. So I say all that to say there's, like, this real internal battle of, like, making a decision to do something and then having the confidence to actually align all the choices you have after that to align with the decision you made, right? So, for example, like, I know people who be like, I want to get in shape. I made the decision. But then, like, when the choice comes to, like, drink or not, they be like, I'm going to drink because I want to have a good time. And it's like, well, we all know that, like, that doesn't actually work, right? Like, or, hey, like, I don't want to be in the gym all that often. It's like, but I thought you decided that you was about to get healthy, right? Or, like, so it's just, like, people say they want to do things, but they're not always willing to, like, actually follow it up with the actions that actually make it possible. So there's a lot of that. And then you get to the point where we have this thing going. We're in the warehouse at 9th and Dolphin, right? We got, first 30 members who believe and they pay in, and then we get to 100, then we get to 200. Now we're like, we have something here. People walking up 4 flights of stairs, paying to be a part of this thing. And we're like, it's time to grow. Like, we can't have people come in to the warehouse anymore. We need to have a better space. We had no heat, no AC. If it was hot outside, it was hot inside. We was all sweating. You know what I'm saying? So we knew that our members deserved a higher quality experience, which meant that we needed to raise capital. And the membership payments was not enough money for us to really invest deeply. And then we realized we don't know nobody that could write us a $100,000 check, right? And in startup world, they say, like, the first round of raising money is your family and friends round. Me or Dave, none of us had family or friends that had the cash to be like, here's $250,000, go. So then we have to figure that out. Then you get back into that networking bag, and then you got to be outside, like, shaking hands and building, those relationships. So there's a lot, man. But I think the deepest internal battle was just the real confidence of knowing the value you have before other people validate it. And I think that's something that most people never get over, you know? And like, for example, man, there were many times you might have seen me talk about this before, like in those warehouse days, bro, what a lot of people didn't know at that time is, you know, and y'all, you've been to the window factory, right? So it was a bunch of different private studios. Rec was built in one John, and just a couple doors down the hall, I was living in there for years. And people didn't know that, right? Because I'm just like, yo, don't worry about that. Like, and, you know, Planet Fitness membership, you know what I mean? Because they had a better shower than we had in there, like all that stuff, right? And that was the commitment that I was making because I was sacrificing in order to make this thing possible.
You said for years?
For years, bro.
Wow.
Yeah, 2.5, 3 years.
Wow.
Thugging it, bro. Like, but I was cool, like, because I knew I had such a deep level of faith of, like, that I would be where we are now. But I just knew that if I made the decision that this is what was going to happen, I had to lower my expenses. I had to figure it out. And I was sleeping in that warehouse after I was working for Eminem and Ice Cube. So I knew, like, I had a nice little apartment, yada, 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 but I made a commitment to build this business. So I was like, all right, bet. Going back to eating oodles and noodles, you know? And honestly, I think there's a gift of coming from humble beginnings because, like, none of that was scary to me. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, in entrepreneur world, they call it bootstrapping, but I'm like, yo, I'm eating oodles and noodles and peanut butter and jelly, like,
cool.
This is what it is,
Like,
right?
listen, I've lived with less.
Right.
But then the idea, though, of, like, living like that, not knowing where your next meal is coming from, and then having the courage to sit across a table from someone that you know you're about to ask for $1 million from takes a different stomach. And to show up with confidence and look them in the eye and be like, this is going to work, and I want to give you an opportunity to invest. It just takes a different person. And if I didn't believe with all of my being, they would smell that from a mile away and be like, yo, you're not a winner. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, like, winners, people who have that cash and that capital, they only want to invest in other winners. And that's just what it is. So that's an internal battle that, like, I had to do real work to get to that point. I had to really challenge my relationship to money to get to that point, to recognize that the money is just the money. Yeah. You know what I mean? Sometimes when you don't have something, you make it this big thing. But I'm like, oh, these dudes, all they got is the money. They don't have the reputation I have. They don't have the vision I have. They don't have the willingness to do this hard work day in and day out for a decade that I have. Y'all can just give me the money and I'm going to give you 10 times back. Right. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because I used to really show up at those investor meetings, bro, like, just so grateful that you guys would make time.
Right.
What kind of talk is that?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, they should be like, yo, this is the bull, and if I don't write him the check now, I'm going to miss an opportunity to change my life. You know what I'm saying? So, like, I had to do real work, bro. That was therapy. That was leadership training and coaching. And, like, this is as someone who is a natural leader. But then I'm like, yo, leadership is a real skill. It's a real science. Let me invest in myself. So, yeah, I had to do a lot of that inner work, bro. And that inner work, I know for a fact, is the reason why we've been as successful as we have to this day. Because I learned this, man. Your organization, your business will never be more successful than your personal level of leadership. Period. So a lot of people will be like, yo, I'm building my thing and, like, really struggling to build a team. Got it. Because, like, you're not the leader that people want to follow yet. And that's okay, but start there. Don't be pointing out and being like, oh, I keep finding people, but they're not accountable or they're not responsible. Oh, cool. That's because you're not accountable and you're not responsible. So you're attracting people that have these skills, these traits that you have. And then once I started to learn that, it's a tough pill to swallow, but then it puts all the power back in your hand to make the shifts that you got to make to attract the people you need to attract.
He talk. Right. He got good, didn't he?
Real, bro. This is the real part. I'm telling you. This
He's
where it
not
gets
capping,
good.
y'all. He really did that work, yo.
I've been through it, bro. Like, and look, and it's not all sunshines and rainbows, bro. Like, the reason why I know these things is, like, you're looking at someone who started in the warehouse. For the first couple years, I was just executing off of the time and graciousness of volunteers who believed in the vision, right? And then got to a point where I could actually pay people full-time salaries, benefits, the whole nine. Went and built a business, ended up getting to 24 full-time employees, hundreds of thousands of dollars per month on payroll, right? Like, and then got to a point where the business hit a little plateau. We had delays and expansion and all that. Then I had to look these same people in the eye and say, yo, sorry to do it. I know it's been 7 years, but this is your last day at Rec.
How did that feel?
Bro, that's one of the hardest things we've ever had to do. And some people want all the glory that comes with entrepreneurship, but they haven't prepared themselves to be the type of person that can have that conversation, right? And then if you can't have those conversations before you know it, Rec shutting down because you couldn't have a hard conversation. Real stuff comes with this business building, you know? And one thing I would just tell everybody is like, prepare yourself to be the kind of person who can do the thing you're asking for. Because if you don't, you'll never be able to keep it, even if you are able to get it.
Yeah. You touched on so many things. And like no, it was like no, as you should though. It was so many points that I was going to say, ask a question but I was like, no, he on a rule. Like I gotta let.
We can unpack any of the things I mentioned, bro.
You feel what I'm saying? The first thing, or one of the things that you spoke on was some of the tools that you used, and you talked about therapy, and I think that's important. Super. Because a lot of you in our community, that's something new. That's something new for us, and a lot of us is trying it and things like that, but a lot of people is not. Yeah, especially our elders. You see what I'm saying? Elders, y'all know what y'all gotta do. It's like, but can you talk about?
Not even psych. Nah, yo. Listen, auntie.
Right.
Go talk to the lady, auntie. Go talk.
Okay.
That's her.
That's me. For all my aunties.
That's her line right there. Like we need, as a people, we need to go talk to the lady for real.
Absolutely.
Can you talk to us about how you got to that point? What was that experience like for you, and the vulnerability that took from you?
Yeah, man. Yeah, for me, the reason I got to that space is before I got there, I really believed in that whole never not working, no days off mentality of business building. And, oh man, this is crazy. I'll never forget this day, bro. I feel it like it was yesterday. There was a moment where, again, I come from videography and production, right? And there was a moment where I was shooting a video for a client. It was a music video for an artist. And to be honest, I did not believe in the art. Like, I just did it for the money. I knew I'm gonna be honest.
We all been there.
I'm like, yo, this rapper is not that good. I don't believe that he is the person that's gonna build this thing. But like, I need the $500. Back when I was charging $500 for a music video, and also building Rec and doing all the things. And like, bro, I had this moment where I'm looking through the lens of this camera, and my brain just turned off, and like, I literally had to stop, and I couldn't even remember where I was and what I was doing. And what happened was I was just at a point of exhaustion, right? Which I learned later. I was like, yo, I gotta sit down. Like, and that's not like me. I'm someone who, like, if I say I'm gonna do it, we just gonna get it done. I'm gonna grind. And I just had this scary moment, bro, where like I almost fainted doing this music video. And I told Bo, I was like, yo, I'm gonna just give you your bread back. I'm not even in a good spot to finish this. I couldn't even muster up the energy to like stare in the edit for 20 hours editing this music video. The editors know that's a crazy thing to have to do, especially if you don't care. And it was a moment, bro, where I'm just like, look, I've been able to muscle my way to get Rec to where it is now, but I can't muscle and brute force my way to the next level. Yeah. It just isn't gonna work. Yeah. And I was like, I'm hurting myself doing this. And real quick, there's a very dangerous place to be when like you are damn near abusing yourself in the name of a thing, and people are clapping for you. You start getting the awards and the accolades, but like you're just not doing it right, for real. And only you know. Yeah. And I was at that spot, and I was just like, yo, if I'm actually gonna have a real shot at making this the thing that I know it can be, I need help. I have to become a better person, which is a wild, vulnerable thing to say. I need to make myself a better leader, and I don't know how to do that other than God and all of these real professionals who know how to do this. And I had real people in my life who just would like see me doing all the things and but also be like, how are you though? You know what I'm saying? And I had a real chat with somebody, and they were like, yo, I've been in therapy, it's been helping, it's lit. And then I gave them all the excuses. Oh, I can't afford that, I don't got time for that, all that. They was like, look, at Temple, they got this joint where you could pay $20 a session and you could get these therapy joints popping. And I was like, all right, I could do 20 a session. And then I just started, yo. And then I never looked back. Since then, I've had 3 or 4 different therapists, because it's also important to date around for your therapist, right? Yes. You got to find the right person who really, that you connect with. Yeah, man. And then it changed my life, bro. And then it allowed me to really see myself outside of myself, you know, and all the things I was normalizing. You really start to get an understanding of like, okay, cool. All these mechanisms that you created for yourself to survive and all the environments you've been in, which of those actually serve you and which of those no longer serve you? Because the reality is, like, the tools that we create to survive are not the same tools that we need if we're ready to thrive. So you have to unpack all that stuff and understand, like, oh, I see you're an overachiever. Where does that come from? You know what I'm saying? Oh, I see that you're a people pleaser. Where did you learn that? And then it gives you an opportunity to take all this subconscious stuff that we be carrying around and then make it conscious. And some people see it, get scared, and they run away. Or you see it and you say, okay, I'm ready to do the work to actually take these things off the table. Yeah. And, you know, fortunately, I had the courage to do that, man. And the people who have known me for a decade, they'll tell you, like, I'm a different bull. And the beauty of it is you don't know what that impact, the residual impact of healing is really going to do. Like, I've started doing that, and then I've seen people in my family start leaning in and change their lives. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's really, really powerful. Because, like, and I'll just let it here, and I know I'm kind of talking a lot on this topic, but Rec could not serve our members as well as we do now if I didn't figure out how to heal and serve myself. Because, like, let's just keep it a buck. Like, a lot of us as creatives, we've been through a lot of stuff, especially creatives of color. So, like, I was designing parts of Rec unintentionally that were triggering to some people. And I didn't even notice it because I wasn't being conscious about how we were designing certain things. And I can give you examples if it's helpful.
Please do.
Right? So, for example, back when we was in the warehouse, for some reason, I guess kind of we were just lazy. Instead of having a very, like, personal, everyone's name by name touch, we decided to make it easier for ourselves to give everyone a member number. So we'd be like, oh, you remember number 348, yada, yada. So, like, it would be easier for us to keep record and stuff. And that was just what we did. We did that up until probably like 342 members or something like that. And then after I started doing the healing process, I started really educating myself on things called trauma-informed care. One of the principles of that is like, yo, where in our lives as Black and brown people does being associated with a number have a positive implication? Nowhere. And because I wasn't educated and because I wasn't thinking about my own trauma and my own healing, that just was what it was, because it was easier. I didn't know if we was unintentionally triggering somebody and all of a sudden they don't know why they don't feel so comfortable, but they do now, and now they can't even make the art that they really want to make. So we just, after I had that experience, we just broke it all down and rebuilt the membership program. And I was like, yo, we don't need that. So let's be real thoughtful about every part of the experience as best we can. But that's just like what happens once you start to get clear and you take that invisible backpack off, and then you actually are seeing the world for what it is, not for what our trauma has shaded us to see it as.
That's fire. I feel like I said, so many of us, a lot of people don't see the positive impacts that it can have even in life outside of just the healing. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like people think that the healing is just so I have peace or whatever the case would be, but it really goes deep. You feel me? Like, so much.
Can I just talk to like one?
Yeah,
element?
Go ahead,
bro. The scarcity mindset is a trauma response. So many of us are running around with this scarcity mindset of like limiting beliefs on what we could do, what we're capable of, right? Like the way it shows up sometimes is like when I was growing up, the conversations about money were, oh, okay, yeah, we riding around this big house over there. Oh yeah, all the people who have big houses, they probably got all that money because they're crooks. And if they got it, it's because they stole or they did something crooked to get it. That's just a story that our people tell themselves to make them feel better about not having the money. And what would happen is if you actually believe that, you would get put into certain positions where you could actually make meaningful money. You start procrastinating. You start self-sabotaging because you don't know why, but subconsciously you're doing everything you can to not become that crook that you've been told, right? And that gets deep. So a lot of times people get in their own way. They got the big meeting, and for some reason they don't know, they can't get out of bed that morning. You know, they wait to the last minute to turn in the test. And it's like, because your body and your spirit knows that this is the opportunity for you. And then you just get defeated by the friction and that resistance, you know? But when you start to heal, you just get more clear on like what's actually happening. And you actually make decisions instead of just making choices. You know what I'm saying? And there's just no limit to understanding the depth of it until you get on the other side and you're like, dang, can't believe I was doing that.
It's like once you get rid of that fear-based voice in the back of your head, you know, because whenever you ask yourself something, like, you know, you respond, but is it a response out of survival and fear, or is it a response out of, you know, believing and having confidence in yourself for this opportunity in front of you?
And when you ask those questions, sometimes God answers. But it's like, are you even clear-minded enough to hear God when he speaks? You know what I'm saying?
It's crazy. I was reading this book.
Something you said just inspired me. Let me say this real quick.
Go ahead.
You just said that fear voice, right? Like that comes up. Some people will literally decide that they want to do something, but then they don't take the actions that they know is necessary to do the thing. And most of the times it's because they don't, in their heart of hearts, believe that they are worthy of the thing that they're trying to get. So then what happens is I'll be like, oh, I want $1 million. But then, like, you don't actually build the habits of discipline because in your mind and in your heart, you feel like even if I did all the work, I still wouldn't get the outcome. And then what do? They never act. And then what happens? They never get the $1 million.
So either way, you don't have it.
Boom. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And that's what happens. And I see every day, we be going through that. So, yeah, that's why the healing is important.
It's true. It's very true.
What I was about to say, I don't know if y'all ever read the book. It's called The Artist's Way.
I love that book.
Yeah, but you know how The Artist's Way talks about everybody has a censor, and the censor's main goal is to like stop you from like
breaking through.
Yeah, breaking through. You feel what I'm saying? It's the cap. It's the lid on whatever the dream is.
That's right.
And so like the point of The Artist's Way is to be able to recognize the censor and defeat the censor.
That's right.
You see what I'm saying? And I feel like that's so like what therapy does. I went to therapy, I think for a year and a half straight, like once a week, every Wednesday for a year and a half straight. And I didn't even realize, like when I went, I knew I needed to go because I'm a black man from the city. And so I'm thinking, like, this is around the time when like Black Lives Matters at its height and George Floyd died and all that. And I had like explicit memories with police and things like that. So that's like the trauma that in and of itself.
It's real.
But when I got there, he said, let's talk about ego. I said, yo, like, what are we talking about? Like,
Talking now. Now you're talking.
Talk about these cops. This
Right,
said, no. Let's talk about ego.
let's talk about ego. Let's talk about pride and ego.
Wow.
And spent the whole first, I don't even remember how long, just really going through it and really unpacking the layers of what it means to, like, you self-identified as a black man, you self-identified as these things. What do those things mean? What do they look like to you?
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? And that was such a transformative experience to me, like that I didn't even know that I was walking into, but definitely informed everything I did past that point. Even like you said, just to the sense of being conscious. Like I wasn't even conscious at a point that I was acting out of pride or I was acting out of ego or my ego was making the decisions
and
for me.
That's when it's most powerful.
You feel what I'm saying? Because you're not, like, it's doing the thing.
It's literally making decisions for you.
Making decisions for you because I have like an image to protect, or I have like, you know, like it makes a choice that this is what you can do and this is who you are and this is who you're not. You see what I'm saying? So if you start getting too deep into this zone that you're not, you need to draw it back because that's not who you are. That's right. And it's like, where did you learn that at? Where did
That's real.
Where did that come from?
That's real.
Shout out to Dr. Leroy, man. That was
Shout out Dr. Leroy, yo.
I mean, he was getting to it.
Yeah, and I feel like, and real quick, I'll just say, I feel like the idea, the word conscious, I think gets kind of a bad rap these days. But really, all it is just a heightened sense of awareness, you know. And it's just like, I look at it like this: every day we have all these crazy thoughts that just our mind just continuously thinks. The process of consciousness or the process of mindfulness or any of these things is like, all right, here are my thoughts. Let me step back and not identify as the thinker, but be like, all right, this is the thought. What do I think about those thoughts? Yeah. Right? And then you do one more level and you're like, well, what do I think about what I think about those thoughts? Mm-hmm. And then it just puts you in such a clearer picture and you're just like, all right, cool. Now let me direct where I want to go.
And that's how you start getting to the root of the thought anyway.
That's
like,
it.
Something can seem like an issue from today or last year even, and whole time it's a trauma from your 7th birthday. Yeah. You know, something that your mom did to you years ago. You don't even realize it because it just keeps snowballing.
And I know a lot of the people listening to this podcast are like overachievers. We have ambitious goals. I just want to challenge everyone that like, and you're hearing this conversation, you have to remember, like, imagine someone who's just like sprinting at full speed. You don't know if that person running is running towards something or away from something. And some of us mask our ambition, right? Of like, oh, I really have this big goal, but really you're just running away from something. And you scared to slow down because you think it's going to catch you. Because that's how I started. Like, again, like my mom was an addict and my dad serving a 30 to 60. I've had uncles murdered. So in the beginning, bro, I was running from that life. I was like, I need to do everything I need to do. I'm going to get great grades so I'll never end up in a prison cell, right? But over time, I had the opportunity to put that down and heal. So now I can run towards community impact, run towards generational wealth, run towards all the things that are really the desires of my heart. But in the beginning, bro, this first 5 years of building Rec, I was running from all of the things that I had known. And now my stride is sturdier and it's way more like consistent and it's way more, I have way more endurance because I have something real to run towards and not just the fear to run from.
That's fire. Like, we really talking right now. This is a good joke.
I remember my,
this might have to be a 2-part John. I don't know.
Just to piggyback off of what you said, I remember growing up, my grandmoms and aunts and just the older people in my family, they would, when they would chastise us, they would say, you're going nowhere fast, running nowhere fast. Like, you doing all this running, you doing all this yada, 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 and you going, like, for nothing. There's nothing. And it's so interesting to see how that same saying applies today and just how it manifests in your life. Like, sometimes you really do be going nowhere fast. Like, you're going somewhere. Yes. Technically, but nowhere for your actual purpose, for your actual self.
And it's crazy because, like, there's new language today. People be like, yo, you got motion. And I know a lot of people that got motion, they moving their feet a lot, but they're not making no progress. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, but anyway. You know?
No, bro, and it's crazy that you said that too, because one of my grandfather's adages was slow down. Like a simpler form of that to me. He just will always tell me like, Pop, I'm doing this and this and this and this. And he like, slow down. I'm like, damn, like you ain't hear what I said though.
Wisdom.
Like,
see, I'm putting points on the board.
They're so unimpressed. They be so unimpressed.
Because they didn't see that life experience.
Yep.
And the reality, a mentor of mine, bro, my guy Alex, he said, you got to slow down sometimes because slow is smooth and smooth is fast. So if you really want to go somewhere quickly, you got to slow down. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. That's the way.
I like that.
The old heads, yo, they know.
Hey, this is gonna
my
be
bad, Alex. I ain't mean to call you an old head just now, but
this is gonna be all the captions from this joint.
I like that.
Get some good Johns.
So, the next, actually, Matt, I want to ask one more question from the last thing you said, and then we're gonna move on to the next question. But so you said, early on you were looking to build Rec, and you needed funding, but you didn't have familial help.
Right.
One, can you speak to like, did you have family support? What was your support system like? Yeah. And two, how did you build the necessary support system in order to fund the idea like Rec?
Yeah, to actually raise capital. Yeah. All right, so my support system, I come from a lot of love and not a lot of money. That's just been my support system. And I'm grateful for it just because, like, honestly, not everyone can say that first part. You know what I'm saying? So I've been privileged that, like, my grandmother has always reminded me that I'm a leader, reminded me that I'm capable, all those things. So she was always a cheerleader in my corner, but don't ask her for some bread. You know what I'm saying? And honestly, just to be fair to her, like, if I asked for some bread, she was going to do everything in her power to get it within her means. But, like, not when you start talking about, hey, I need 50 grand. Like, that just, stop playing.
That's out of my,
You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, when it came down to raising capital, man, like, one, I had to learn the language of raising capital because there's a very distinct language. And then two, I had to learn how to tell the story. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of people, again, you ask them, like, what they're doing, they just can't articulate it well. And what I learned about raising capital is sales and raising capital is completely a game of storytelling. And the story is pretty simple. It's five kind of steps. It's one, what problem are you solving, right? Which is, again, entrepreneurship is just about solving problems. So what's the problem you're solving? And you also kind of talk about how big is that problem, right? The second one is, why are you the very best person to solve that problem, right? Which is key. Because when you're first raising capital in the beginning, these like series, call it seed round or even into like sometimes series A, definitely pre-seed and seed, the investor is not investing in your business. They are solely investing in you as the founder. And like, you got to remember that, because some people are like, yo, I got this great idea, no one's investing. And it's like, it's because it's not the idea that they're investing in. They're investing in you. And we have to remember that. So anyway, what's the problem you're solving? Why are you the very best person in the world to solve this problem? What unique knowledge do you have? What specific vantage point and vision do you have? The third part of it is, what are you going to do with the money, right? And like, that sounds like a crazy thing, but like, you know how many people have told me that, like, yo, I'm struggling in my business, I need funding. And then when I ask them what they're going to spend it on, they have no idea, right? So get very, very clear. What do you need to solve the problem? The fourth piece is, what does the world look like when that problem is solved, right? For me, we want to make sure every creative entrepreneur has access to these resources, yada, yada, yada. There's going to be millions of people around the world who can build business around their passion, better world, yada, 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 interconnectedness, no more starving artists. Like, there's a whole understanding of, like, what are we actually trying to do to the world, right? And then the final piece of the story, and people don't be thinking about it like this, and I don't know why, is what's in it for them when you solve that problem and your business is successful. They're not giving you money out of charity. They're investing in the business, and they're expecting to make a 5, 10, 20x return. So tell that story of, here's the problem I'm solving. It's a huge one that a lot of people have, and it's only going to get bigger. 2, this is why I have the unique perspective to be the best person in the world to solve this problem. I really believe that Dave and I are the best people in the world to build the business we're building. And that gives me the confidence to go and do this stuff. 3, what do we need to solve the problem? Here, we need $4 million this round, and here's why. Here's how we're going to spend it to actually grow our revenues, right? And then, boom, this is what the world is going to look like when we solve the problem, how much better of a place it's going to be. And then most importantly, here's how you're going to get your money back and how much of it. If you can tell that story in a deck and in a short little 10-minute pitch, you're going to be able to find the money. Now, the second equation is, do you have a spreadsheet of hundreds of people that you can pitch to? For us, when we were raising capital, we went through at least 80, 90 no's before we got our first yes. You know what I'm saying? Our fundraising spreadsheet now is hundreds of contacts, probably 350, maybe 380 contacts. And can you tell that story to hundreds of people who say no and still have the same enthusiasm on the next pitch? If you can't, it's just not for you. But that's just what it's about. But that's how you raise the money, man. You go around, you do all the research, learn all the language, get the story together, and then you got to build a whole spreadsheet of people and go one by one, setting up the meetings, hoping that one of them ones, they see the world the same way you do and is willing to take the risk with you.
How did you develop the fortitude to get through the no's?
Man, it comes back to what we talked about before. It's that unwavering and almost irrational self-belief, right? Russ talks about this in his book, the first book he put. You gotta have a unreal level of self-belief. And the cheat code to that self-belief, for anyone who's like, well, how do I do that, right, is you gotta build your relationship to you, which looks first doing small things. Like, for example, let's talk about it like this. If you have a friend that every time You invite them out. They say, yeah, I'm going to go. But then they just never show up. You only got but 5 or 6 times, and that's even generous.
That's what I'm saying.
Right?
That's what I'm saying.
Still be right.
Before you just say, bro, I'm not inviting you because I don't believe you. But there's people out here where every day we'll say we're going to do something, and then we don't do it, and then we wonder why we don't have the confidence we should have. Because you don't have the confidence with yourself. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm fortunate that, like, and I was bad with accountability in the very beginning. But, like, these days, if I put something on my calendar, something crazy has to happen in order for me to not do it. You know what I'm saying? And I'm still getting better, and Dave and I hold each other accountable to it. But if you don't have that self-trust where, like, your word means something to you, you can't move through the world like, yo, I'm going to build $100 million business and believe it. And if you don't, then it's, like, hard to get other people to believe it because that confidence is contagious, you know? So have that self-belief, and then, again, do the therapy and the inner work that really builds that resilience because, like, it's ugly out here. Like, business is not a friendly place. You know, it's also not this evil place that we make it out to be either, but business is war without bullets. So, like, if you're not built for that, then, like, don't get on the battlefield. You know, not everyone should be an entrepreneur.
I feel like I think a lot of things, man. I think a lot of things. I guess on that same topic, right? How has your idea or definition of success on one and wealth two, like when I'm talking about success, I'm talking about like financial success, and then when I'm talking about wealth, I'm talking about whatever your definition of wealth is. How did it start? And I want to ask both of y'all, how did it start and how did it change over time?
These are great questions, by the way. You want to go first?
I think that, so from a very young age, my understanding of wealth was not rooted in finances. And that I'm grateful for.
Dope.
That I'm very, very grateful for. So it's always been about wealth to me, community, family, resources, you know, love, things like health, things like that. Like that is wealth. Healthy mind, healthy spirit, just health. That's right.
It's real.
And success, when I was young, of course, the normal stuff. Glitz, glam, Lamborghinis, lots of money. Like, you know, just flossing, flexing, everything on the videos. Like, on the yachts, everything.
You be on the yachts?
I do.
Yachts are nice.
I do. You know what I'm saying? You got to manifest it. Anyways, but of course, now that I'm older, that's still in there. But success does look a lot. Success does look a lot different, and I think that now my idea of success is more in line with what my idea of wealth is. And just,
that's fire.
Yeah.
I love that you have that perspective. Because when I started, yeah, and in the beginning for me, man, success and both wealth, I think really came from this place of like freedom for me. And I thought that like freedom was like getting to a point where no one could tell you no. Freedom was being able to do whatever I want to do when I want to do it. Wanting to wake up and have enough money to just be like, yo, let's go do dinner in Paris tonight. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and it's not that I don't, you know, want to get to those places, but I learned that my idea of success and freedom was just backwards. You know, freedom is not unlimited optionality. Freedom is the discipline that creates this idea of you're free from all of these desires of the flesh, right? Freedom is getting to a place where you want what you have. And that's what I think success is, right? Success is that deep, for real, bro. And I'm only barring up like this because I've been through it, bro. I've been through it, bro. I'm the bull. I used to want to be a billionaire and like was on the track. Like, this is what I'm going to do. And it's not that I still won't have, you know, tons of money, because I will. But like, I realized that I actually don't want what comes with a billionaire. You know what I'm saying? But freedom or success, if I had to say it, is success is just wanting what you have, you know, and having real deep peace with that. Because I know a lot of people who have millions and millions of dollars, but they're not successful because they can't sit in peace with themselves and not be always thinking about the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. You know, so like that's it. And one of my favorite entrepreneurs is a guy named Naval, And he describes success in the way that you were describing it. And he says, success is a calm mind, a healthy body, and a house full of love. And once you get there, accept it. You know what I'm saying? And like, of course you want to improve your quality of life and this and that. So do that. But you should be thinking about improving your quality of life by improving other people's lives. You know what I'm saying? Not just this, through purpose, not through this endless rat race of like, gotta get more, bigger, bigger, bigger. Because that's a trap, yo. And like, for real, what that does, and I'm gonna get off my soapbox after this, but for real, what that does is it just trains you to have this like hyper focus on what you lack instead of really just sitting in the abundance of all the amazing things you have. You
Never
know?
satisfied.
Never satisfied.
Like a society of insatiable people.
Bar.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because the society knows that it's a society full of insatiable people. So all of the apps and all of the social media feed it like
100%.
Like here's goes more than one. Here's more.
The less satisfied, the more money society makes.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's why everything is the way it is, where people are so broken, because they know that in the marketing industry we can just sell you all the things that you are insecure about. That's just how it works. You know what I'm saying? So the world's brightest minds are solving the problem of how do we get people to focus on the screen more so we can sell to them more.
The brightest minds, like the most intelligent people, are focused on keeping you distracted. That's crazy to think about how hard you have to work against that in order to be at peace. You feel what I'm saying?
That's it.
Wow. So
It's been a great conversation.
right. So that was the first part of our podcast, which focused more on the story aspect. So this part is called Drop Some Gems. So where we ask the experts to be experts in the thing that they do in order to give some gems to the people that are listening. So the first question.
Drop gems.
Okay. Just some pre-gems.
Right. Not that it obviously this is a whole diamond, John. You feel what I'm saying? Like if you made it to this point, you up right now.
Facts.
You up right now. So the first question in this section is, can you explain the concept of direct to consumer marketing and how you leverage that concept into a business model?
Yeah, and I'll try to be super concise with it.
Yeah.
Direct to consumer is just this idea that we all have these iPhones, we all have the internet, and we have the ability to create things and communicate directly with the people who want them and find them valuable. And that's important because, especially in the entertainment industry, 3 decades ago, the norm was if I'm an artist, a rapper, or a singer, I have to get signed to a label. Why? Because the label has relationships with radio, the radio has relationships with the people. So if I want to be successful and I want to hit record, I have to go through that system to get to the people. Same thing in film. If I'm dope, I have a great film, I have to get signed to a production company who then can get me into the theaters, who can get me to the people. What the internet has done now is allowed us to bypass all the middlemen and literally just build an audience of people who believe what we believe. And if we're smart and we get their phone numbers or we get their emails, we can communicate to them whenever we want, right? And people are literally out here building 6-figure and 7-figure and 8-figure businesses off of these ideas. And I really believe it's going to fundamentally change the world, because what we used to be excluded from, because those gatekeepers and these institutions had bias, right, on who they wanted to give power to, who they didn't want to give a budget to. We don't need none of that. So that's why someone, can just come up with a great idea, communicate it clearly, and then change their life, because we could skip all the middle. So that's what direct to consumer is. And for me, one, I built a business that was about going directly to people and solving the problems of creative entrepreneurs. And then through that, because I knew how important this whole concept is, a lot of what we do is now teach direct to consumer to our members, so that way they can be better equipped to create their life the way they want.
Shout out to Michael McDonald, the first person who really broke down to us the value of direct to consumer and the value of that email list. he asked me straight up, like, what's your email list look like?
Facts.
And I was like, I don't have one. He like, you don't got an email list. So what are you doing?
Right.
He like, so what are y'all doing then?
On camera.
You feel what I'm saying? Shout out to Area Leisure too. But it's like,
It's like, what are you doing? It's really like, yo, no assets, just vibes. Like,
Right.
you know what I'm saying? Like, you know,
it's like, so y'all just out here vibing. It's great talk, but like, y'all just for the vibes.
for real. Because if you're not leading someone somewhere, because
Well.
what people don't realize, and this is like, it's funny, but it's like, yo, people don't realize that like when you get on the internet and you build, hey, I got 100,000 Instagram followers. Those are not your fans.
Right. That's just people that hit the button.
Yeah, those are Instagram's fans.
Right.
And if Instagram shut down tomorrow, you have no connection to those
Right.
people.
Yeah.
You know, so it's about who owns the relationship with your fans.
Yeah. So the second one in this section is, what books did you read or resources did you use to develop your business knowledge?
Oh man, I could talk about this forever, but I'll just give you a few to
Okay.
keep it simple. First, I'm gonna just start by saying this: if you like what we're talking about and you're someone who's passionate and wants to build your business, the best book you can grab is this one right here, Uncommon Sense.
As
Your
you
strategy
should.
guide to create freedom, because I've just made it so simple. You know, when it looks like not easy, but so simple to build a profitable business around your passion. So I'm gonna start there. But some of the books that I've consumed that have really helped change my game, I'll just list them off quick. First book that I think changed my life as far as an entrepreneur goes is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Helped me really understand what it looks like to build something great and like build a mindset first. So that was a really powerful one. Second book was about mindset and like just getting my spirit right and healing. The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. Phenomenal book. Third one, and honestly, this one saved our business when things were looking grim. Traction by Gino Wickman, because it's all about what every business really needs to grow and to scale. It's like, hey, you got a cool thing going, but like, how do you make it real? Traction did that, and then they had a certain chapter in it called Rocket Fuel, and it was so powerful that they ended up making a whole nother book called Rocket Fuel. And honestly, I think it saved Dave and I's business relationship, because there were so many things about his role and my role in the business that we used to look at each other and take so personally. But then the book helped us understand that like every great business usually has two types of leaders. One is an integrator and one is a visionary. And like there were certain things that I just was like not good at. And the book allowed us to be like, oh, that's just because you're a visionary. So like, yeah, you're not going to get to inbox zero every day because that's just not who you are. And we also shouldn't expect you to do that. So that was a really great book. So Rocket Fuel and Traction. And then every like 2 years I reread The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. It's just a phenomenal book, just about the journey and fulfilling a desire of your heart. Man, I read a lot of Seth Godin books. I think he's one of the best marketers to ever do it. So things like Purple Cow, This Is Marketing, All Marketers Are Liars. I like Malcolm Gladwell, The Tipping Point, which talks about how things spread, how to get movement started and all that stuff. Yeah, I be reading, bro.
Yeah, clearly.
And the best business book out there, surprisingly, the Bible. Shout out to the Bible. The Bible.
Tell us a little bit more about the Bible, because we just had Manny 215 on last week, and
shout out Manny, that's my guy.
That's my guy, super strong and a super strong brother in his faith. You know,
Absolutely.
he's Muslim, and he told us about a lot about Islam. You feel what I'm saying? So right now our comments are flooded.
That's what's up.
With, which is great. You see what I'm
Yeah.
saying? But then it's like people, why you only highlight this? I'm not that type person. You feel what I'm saying? I feel like the knowledge is where the knowledge is.
For sure.
But tell us a little bit about the knowledge that you gained from the Bible.
Bro, I mean, again, what I was saying earlier, man, a lot of this is about faith, belief, right? So if you don't have that center, it's going to be really hard for you to do anything great. But specifically in the business context, I'll give you one quick parable, from the Bible. There's a quick story where there's a master and he has some servants, and the master comes and is basically like, yo, I'm gonna give you 1 talent, right, which at that time was like money. It was like gold coins, right? And I'm gonna give you 2 of them, I'm gonna give you 5 of them, and I'll be back, right? And I want you to just steward these well, right? Leaves, comes back, and then the guy who had 5, he's like, yo, good and faithful master, I did right, boom, I got 10 of them now. I took it out into the marketplace, I multiplied it. He was like, yo, lit, great. Paraphrasing, obviously. The bull who had 2, he's like, yo, I went out in the marketplace, flipped them, now I have 4. And then the guy who had 1, he's like, yo, I know you're a real powerful master. I didn't want to dishonor you, So I actually took that one talent you gave me and I buried it. And here it is. I didn't lose it. And he goes, yo, you're foolish. Give me this talent, and I'm actually going to give it to the one who had 10, right? And the idea there is just like, one, we were put here to have talents to then multiply them. So the story of it is like, we have that scarcity mindset of like, I don't want to lose it, and I don't want to be punished for losing it, so I'm just going to hide it. When really what we're meant to do is to be fruitful and multiply. And there's tons of different stories in the Bible that talk about that. But it's just about that courage of like showing up and doing the thing and taking the risk. You know, we have everything we need. And there's plenty of other stories, but it just really comes down to like, there are real principles in the Bible that are just about how humans work best. And we can say everything we want about like, oh, I have this new way of doing things and yada, yada, yada. But like, we're talking about the operating system that millions and millions of people have operated on for thousands of years, and humans have not changed all that much. So if you really understand yourself, you understand your relationship to the Creator who made us in the Creator's image, right? Like, God made us as these like creative beings who have dominion over this whole earth. He gave us the ability to name all the animals and to steward this whole garden that is the earth. And if we understand the rules of the game, it allows us to create anything we can desire, as long as first we, as the Bible says, seek ye first the kingdom, and all the desires that are in alignment with him will be added to you. And I think sometimes we skip that step and we just try to go find all the desires, and that's really a trap. So it's about understanding ourselves as creators, made in the Creator's image, and just really being willing to seek out the kingdom, live like kingdom people, and then it's almost impossible not to actually get what you're trying to get out here.
Appreciate that. And that brings us right into our last question, which is, how did you stay encouraged through all of the adversity, spiritually and mentally? Because I feel like a lot of people don't really talk about the spiritual aspect or the spiritual warfare that goes on, especially as you scale up or you go into these rooms with these people and you have to make decisions about principles, or you have to make decisions like that. How did you stay encouraged, and what did that look like for you?
Yeah, man, I had a cheat code because I was raised in the church. You know, the church is what helped me really understand my abilities as a leader. The church is what helped me build courage and my faith in God and Jesus Christ, bro, because it gets scary out here. You know, like, yeah, man, we were operating a multi-million-dollar business in our 20s, you know, and like what comes with that is a great deal of responsibility, bro. And like, I got to a point, man, where like you start getting that taste of money and access and accolades, and it's just so easy, bro. Before you know it, that ego goes crazy, and you start moving different. How Kendrick say? You start abusing your influence, misusing your influence. Yeah. It's real, you know. And like, if I didn't have that like real foundation, you know, of the word, it would be so easy, bro, to go off the deep end, you know. So I'm really grateful, bro, for that upbringing that I had. And even now, man, I'm back in a part of my life where I'm like doubling down on my faith, because like, you know, God has been speaking really clearly to me and just being like, yo, look at what I've been able to do with you and for you and through you in this lukewarmth. You halfway in, halfway out. You know what I'm saying? And he's like, yo, imagine what I could do with you when you really are submitting to the walk, you know? And that's where I'm at now. And ever since I made that commitment, the things that I've been able to bring into fruition, you know, in accordance to his will, have been coming fast, you know? And yeah, that's what it's looked like for me. It's that prayer and also like that therapy. And I think both are important, because some of our folks is like, yo, I'm gonna pray, but I'm not actually gonna do like the inner work, or I'm not actually gonna like take action. But for me, it's been both of those things, man. And I'm really grateful to have that foundation.
I really appreciate that answer. Like as a man of faith myself, I was also raised in the church and things like that. And I think just like most people, I don't want to say most people, but for myself, yeah, I had a time when I was there, and then a time when I wasn't.
Yeah, we all backslide. Not all, but a lot of us backslide.
You see what I'm saying? Yeah. A time where I wasn't, but just hearing you in some of your interviews or how you talk or present yourself, putting that first, just to remind all of us that that's what comes first, is super inspirational to the people that believe, and the people that stay strong or stay attached to purpose and faith in God in that way. So I really appreciate
Thank you
for that.
Thank you for honoring that, man. Yeah. And I'll just say this, man. That we are at a real dire place where people are lonelier than ever. People are more depressed than they've ever been. And I think a lot of times people be like, yo, I'm depressed. But really, you're just disconnected, from yourself, from what you really believe is your source. And, yeah, man, I'm glad that you honored what I said, man, because I think it's just important for people to be reminded, bro. That's the foundation.
So before we get out of here, man, can you first tell everybody where to find you? Tell them about the newest things that you got going on. Give your self plug, do your thing.
Let's do it. All right. Listen, if you want to stay in touch with me, you can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, at the Will Toms, THE Will. Last name is Toms, TOMS. And then also follow Rec Philly, REC Philly on everything. And outside of that, the book, go get it. You can buy it, shop.recphilly.com. I've really seen people change their lives through following the strategies in this book. So I want that for anyone who really believes in what they're doing. Beyond that, this is actually really dope. For anyone who's like, yo, I like how he thinks, he knows what's going on with this marketing thing. May 15th, I'm launching a coaching program where I'm literally going to walk 20 people through all of the steps of what we've done to build Rec, the things that I talk about in the book, where like if people are like, yo, I'm not really the kind of person who learns well from just reading a book, and every week we're going to show up together, we're going to learn together, and we're going to make sure people build their business plans, they're going to build marketing plans, and we're going to do that in community with other people who are serious. So be on the lookout for that. Follow me on Instagram. I'll talk about it. But I did that 3 months ago, and I've seen some people really level up, and I was like, I got to make time to do this again. So we're going to do that. And then outside of that, just stay tuned with all the events Rec is going to be doing, because we're going to turn up this summer. Yeah. We just built a new venue where the dinner was. We're going to program that out all summer and beyond. So, yeah, we moving, and God is good.
Fire. And so the last segment is called Give Us Some Game. So any advice that's on your heart or anything that you've been, meditating on that could be good for somebody to hear.
I mean, look, just because this is where we've been at in these last couple of minutes, it's seek ye first the kingdom, and all the rest will be added. I just think that's so important because, like, a lot of times, like I said, some of us be running, but we just running from stuff, So it's like before you want to get all the things, just heal, and really focus on that inner work. Like the most valuable asset that we can ever invest in is ourselves. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not go buy the better camera and then, go buy the better microphone and, go buy the better car. It's like, are you sturdy? Yeah. So I just really want to be a reminder to somebody like, yo, you're worth the investment of like taking care of yourself, and if you get all those things in alignment, it makes it so much easier to do everything outside,
Well, we truly appreciate you for coming out. We truly appreciate everything that you've brought to our platform, everything that you've brought to this city. This is really major for the people that don't know. Studio 524 is a seedling of Rec.
That's crazy. I didn't know that until an hour ago. That's love, man.
Yeah. So, and we appreciate your vulnerability in coming to the space for real. So,
thanks for having me. Yo.
There you have it. Another episode of the Winners Culture podcast. Follow us at the Winners Culture on Instagram, at Studio 524 Philly, on everything. This pod is dropping on all platforms. And until next time, we'll holler at you.